Amber, it is so amazing to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's been too long. You and I were talking about this beforehand. It's been years, which is crazy to think that somehow it's been years. I don't even know how that's possible, but you are someone who I just treasure and I think about as someone who has been the biggest blessing, because when I was pivoting from the photography industry and I was ready to move into I want to help all kinds of people, you were the first person that really gave me literally a stage and, getting to come speak at Inspired Retreat, which you are so incredible at events and retreats and getting to speak there twice. And it was just, anyways, I adore you and I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. It's funny because over the years, you get a lot of emails in your inbox, right? Of, you could say cold pitches, people just kind of come in, want to connect with you, or they found some kind of alignment with you. And yours just stood out in the inbox that day. And I always think it's always divinely led or something of that sort. But I remember your email. I remember it coming through, and it was just so different, the message and the heart, I think, behind what you wanted to do and what you wanted to teach other women, that it stood out in the inbox. I was like, okay, I'm going to give this person a chance, because I don't give everyone a chance. But yeah, I did. And I'm so glad I did.
That's so funny. And honestly, knowing you, after the years of getting to know you more and being at more events of yours, your first coterie and, the retreat a couple times, it wasn't until later that I realized just how amazing that was that I did get through. I was like, oh, dang, that was really amazing. And you're right. It did there was so much heart behind it. And I think that's important, because I think people need to understand, at the end of the day, it is people talking to people. We're all humans. And sometimes we kind of forget that. And I remember I'd gotten the email about Inspired Retreat, and I had this overwhelming, I have to be there. I have to. This message is in such perfect alignment with everything I believe. This seems so powerful, but I couldn't just be normal and say and so I'm going to be an attendee. I was and therefore I must be on the stage. I must be a speaker. And I'm so grateful that I got to do that. I still remember when we did get to connect. And I'll say another component of that is that people this is so funny. We're going to be talking about, just so everyone knows, we're going to be talking about sales funnels and value ladders. But I think this is powerful, and I want to just have this real conversation. You didn't respond right away. And so I sent the email and I didn't hear anything. And I think this is really important because I followed up. And I think so many times people send one email and they go, oh, okay, well, they don't want me. It didn't work. And I couldn't stop thinking about Inspired. I just felt like I was supposed to be there, and I hadn't heard back from you. And I just felt like I had this nudge that was follow up. And I even argued with it. I was like, no, it was such a brazen email, and she might already think, oh my gosh. But I decided to. And I remember your response, and you were like, I am so glad you followed up. I just had eye surgery, and things are crazy. And I'm so glad you followed up. And so I have shared that story so many times when I've been teaching and different opportunities, because the follow-up is a critical component. We need to just assume they're not going to get back to us the first time. They're having eye surgery, people, and they can't get back to you. And, to have that follow-up.
Even before you said the eye surgery part, because I forgot, and that was a very key part. And my life at that season, I couldn't even read my inbox.
Yes, you could not see.
Inches from the screen. It was terrible. But when you started the story, I was like, oh yeah, this is for all the ADHD entrepreneurs out there. Myself, I'm terrible at my inbox. That's why I always tell people for my community and whatnot, I'm email hello@amberhousley.com. That's the team email, because you'll get a great customer service, a very timely response. But me, I open up my inbox and it's a flood of emails. That's just harder for me to get through and sort through. But that follow-up is so key. Yeah, you need it.
Yeah, I mean, we're all trying to juggle and balance so much. And let's be honest, sometimes the inbox, it gets pushed to the side because there's other more pressing things. And I think That's why it's so important to try to keep your email as short as possible. Like we've all experienced where you open your inbox, you see an email and it is a novel and you're like, back to unread. I'll try to get to that later.
Yes.
And then, life just keeps happening. So trying to keep them as short as possible with the information you need and then making sure you follow up because amazing things can happen. Like having Amber Housley say, you know what? I would actually love to have you speak. In fact, why don't you be the keynote speaker? And I was like,
I know you were a keynote. Like,
yes!
You don't give that to everyone. Like, not everyone gets that.
So amazing.
That's such a big deal. I mean, and oh my gosh, I know this is not what this episode's about, but last night yesterday was Valentine's Day when we were recording this now. And, I was at the restaurant with my husband and I was getting dings on my phone, and we were having a moment and he works from home. So we're around each other 24/7. I always say when we're at restaurants and people see us on our phones, I want to tell everyone in the room, we're around each other all the time. I promise we talk and we have a great connection. We're just checking our phones right now. Anyway, but I was checking my Facebook messages, which I don't check very often. It's not a channel that I use. And there was all kinds of messages in there from people who were wanting to connect on that way. And I, like in some way, like collaborate, speaking, whatever. And I'm like, ooh, this is like a terrible channel to be reaching me at, And so I think it's maybe a double-pronged approach is good. And you could hit me up in Facebook Messenger, but send me an actual real email. That's where you're going to really get my attention, not necessarily in any kind of direct messages scenario, because I can't keep track of that.
Yes. So I'm the same way. I am terrible in Facebook Messenger. I have seen things a year later and been like, I am so sorry, right? It is just not, it's not my channel. But what's so fascinating, then there's other people where the only way you're going to reach them is in their IG DMs, right? You better be on Instagram in their DMs. They don't ever check their email. And that I think is another component. You need to do a little research and figure out where it seems like they're active and what seems like their place. So if I DM someone, I will often make sure I comment on a post of theirs and, comment on the post and say, plus I left you a DM. I can't wait to connect with you. Or if I sent them an email, but they seem to be very active on social, I'll comment and say, and I just sent you an email. I can't wait to connect with you. So that double prong approach, I agree. I think it's really powerful. And just thinking that you're sending in one spot because it's your spot and it's going to work, like Facebook Messenger. And if that's not their channel and their place, you think you've been overlooked or ignored or ghosted, and they have no idea that it ever even was sent.
Yes, no, 100%. And you might even have, if it's a person that has a team as well, sometimes the team is the one checking the messages via another thing, and you have no visibility to it, which is a lot of the case sometimes too, because they get filtered to different apps and plugins and things like that, where team takes care of messages. And you got to hit up in all the places.
It's so true. It's so true. Okay, so speaking of all the places, trying to figure this out, we're going to pivot this into sales funnels and value ladders. So let's just start really simple. What's a very basic, what is a sales funnel and what is a value ladder? And then we'll start building out from there.
Okay. Well, I always say too, when we start talking about all these advanced marketing strategies, you could say,
there you go.
A lot of listeners and students within my programs, they can start to feel overwhelmed and that they're already less than in this kind of conversation because of the jargon and the words and software, and you get into all these different pathways and journeys. So I always say it's good to listen to this type of content and this type of episode with an open mind and the idea that, hey, if I could just get one thing right now that I can implement and then just tuck everything else in my back pocket, and down the road as I grow and my business grows and I need more tools, I need more strategies, then I can go and pull those things out, but not to feel overwhelmed and intimidated by any of this conversation. So I think that's important first.
I love that so much. I often, for myself personally, but also when I'm coaching and teaching, I say, okay, let's look at this as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1, we're just gonna, it's like in college, you start with 101. And then you don't start in the 400s, right? And so I think that's such a great reminder and that's one of the ways we balance it all is if you try to take on all of it at once, it's going to feel so daunting and overwhelming. And there's a good chance you're going to just walk away and be like, never mind, it's too much. But if we just start with, okay, let's start with one action step or start with the phase 1 version, and then we can always evolve. And it's going to get easier to evolve because phase 1 is now going to make sense and be easy. So now stacking phase 2 is going to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, we'll start with a sales funnel, or like in our world, an online sales funnel is kind of really what our conversation is about. So an online sales funnel is kind of like a virtual pathway where you're guiding people to be curious about your product or your service or anything that you offer, and you're guiding them to eventually become a paying customer. So there's a lot of step-by-steps that you're kind of guiding people through, engaging them at different levels of the journey. And just like a real funnel, like if you think, it's so weird because we don't use oil funnels anymore. And we don't like I think of like the actual physical funnel is the idea that it's very wide at the top and it's very narrow at the bottom. That's what it is. Because I feel like the newer generations would not know what that tool is, right? I don't think that is. But as they go through different stages, it gets narrower and narrower until they become a paying customer. And so that's basically an online sales funnel. And you can use different softwares and different tools to help automate different steps in that process and convert people who are interested into paying customers. So that is an online sales funnel. And then a product value ladder is similar in a lot of cases. And it's the idea of kind of like a rungs on a ladder. People can be guided through their experience or even through an online sales funnel to buy at different stages of where they need solutions for their problems. And so we think of the bottom of the ladder as being entry level, maybe even free or very low ticket. And then as they graduate levels, as they need more solutions, or as they advance in some way, maybe just depending on your product or service, they'll invest more with you. And so people can come in at the top of your ladder. They can come in at the bottom, the middle, but your different offers can kind of be positioned in that way strategically.
Okay, so would you say that a sales funnel and a value ladder are kind of the same thing, just different terms for them? Or would you say, no, there's actually a different place for each?
I think of the sales funnel as more of the marketing tactics. And then the value ladder is the products that would happen within the funnel. Like they're almost like they can make purchases along the way within their funnel. Mm-hmm.
I like that. I think of a value ladder often as like what your product suite is, right? Like when I think of a value ladder, I'm like, okay, here's my product suite. And it makes sense that they would start with like, this is almost like the step 1 product. And then this is step 2 product and step 3 product. And you're kind of working them down. And usually that's going to be ticket price, right? Like it's going to start smaller and go bigger, but it's also going to be information because, they're not ready to do step 4 until they've learned how to do step 1, 2, and 3. So that's how I like to think of the product value ladder.
Yeah, and I think too is a lot of people believe, so do I start at the bottom, like in my creation phase? And that's not necessarily always the case. Like I think of different clients I've worked over the years where they had one offer and it was a very high ticket offer, that could have been, $1,000 or more maybe to invest in, right? And so that was their bread and butter for all these years. And so we would work together to go and build out their ladder so there'd be more offers at the beginning stages so they can serve more people. And so really just depending on your own business needs and growth and what you want to do with your time, that's when you can kind of decide where you start in building out your whole ladder and your whole product suite.
I love that you mentioned that because I was actually one of those people. I started with those higher ticket price points where I was above $1,000 for all my products. And then later on thought, you know what? I need to add in some lower options so that people who can't make that decision quite yet still have the opportunity to learn and grow. So I love that you pointed that out. Okay, so let's start by maybe talking through like a sales funnel, like what that could look like, starting with a freebie and then how that actually maybe goes down.
Sure. Well, I think I like to use real examples. So I'll actually give you an example of one of our sales funnels we have at Amber Housley. So I teach on marketing and strategy for businesses and seasonal practices in your life. But I also teach people and business owners how to create retreats and live events in your business. And so as we built out that side of the business, we created a whole funnel. And the very first thing we did is we actually created a course. And so we have a course, Invite and Delight. It's a $997 investment level of a product, so it'd be high ticket. And once we created the course, beta, launched it, all the things, well, then I had to work backwards to create the whole sales funnel. So then I could create content, because not everybody who comes through and meets me for the first time wants to hand over $1,000 before they've actually, really gotten to know me and trust me, So what we did is we created a lead magnet. So we created a free opt-in, a freebie guide that's called the Retreat Planning Roadmap that kind of gives you almost like the starting points if you want to get started creating retreats. Here's the 10 things you need to know. Here's some mistakes you want to avoid. Here's a whole checklist of all the things that go into creating retreats. And so very juicy guide. And so when you go to that page, which by the way, we create lots of marketing content that then fuels all to that freebie download. We want it to be really easy for them to build that trust and see the knowledge and experience I have to share. And so pretty much when I'm on podcasts or I'm, elsewhere online, I'm sending everybody to this landing page for this free opt-in. So when they go to download it, they're given the download, given the free gift. And on that thank you page, I introduce them to a low ticket offer. So on the thank you page and in some of the emails that follow the delivery of that resource, there's a $37 product we call the Dream Retreat Challenge, which is actually some of the first lessons within the course. So it's almost like a taste of Invite and Delight, the higher ticket offer. And it's all about envisioning what your retreat could look like dreaming it up, all the pieces and everything. And it just starts getting you comfortable with getting in practice of creating this retreat. And then eventually we start nurturing them into Invite and Delight through other emails and through other marketing methods. So that's actually the funnel itself as you kind of go from the freebie point to a lower ticket offer to the higher ticket one.
Okay, that is so helpful for people to actually hear of a funnel go through. And the thing that stood out to me that I was interested in is that the thing to start with is the free, okay, or very, very low ticket. And I'm starting to get more of a fan of a very, very low ticket because we do have so many people who they're just they collect all the free stuff. They don't ever do anything with the free stuff, right? So having just a little skin in the game can be really powerful. But most of us, and me included, we have a lot of free. It's a PDF, it's a mini course, it's a masterclass, it's a workbook, but it's something that gives value and that feels valuable enough to exchange an email address for, right? And they say that most of us value our email address as worth at least $10. So it needs to feel at least valued at $10. But ultimately, what I really think is it just needs to cover a pain point. Ultimately, if I have a current pain point and I'm thinking, I really want to host a retreat, right? I want to do this. And I get to stumble on your landing page and it tells me hey, for free, I'll give you this breakdown in this guide. I'm like, heck yeah, here is my email address. I want it. So that's the way we think about this freebie. And then you have the $37, right? Was that it? 37?
Yeah, $37.
Okay, but then
it's a 3-day challenge product.
Okay, but then you're jumping to $997. You're jumping from $37 to $1,000.
So that's interesting. I know. As I was saying it aloud, I was like, "Oops, you left out an important detail, Amber."
Okay, because I was like, "Whoa, that is a very
that's a huge one, right?
That's a huge jump."
Okay, so what we did, so when we live launch Invite and Delight, which I do a couple of times a year, there's actually two versions of Invite and Delight. So there's the we call it full, the full program experience, which includes lifetime access to me, live coaching every month through office hours, a Facebook group. It's the full program experience. But we introduced a lower cost investment for people who want to DIY, and that one is $497.
Okay.
And so that one is, yes, that one typically, we call that our evergreen funnel, our Invite and Delight evergreen, so not the live version. The evergreen version is usually typically what we're selling from the $37 product to the $497. And within that, like it's offered on the page of the sales page. You can choose between basic and full. So $497 versus $997. But most of it is guiding people to choose the $497 version. And then we like put some marketing messaging within the course of basic to ask them, hey, do you want to upgrade and get the full program experience, which is so much better, you know? And so to me, it makes sense in that when I call evergreen, when we're not in a live launch period, and that's the funnel that is running, because $497 is a lot easier, especially with a payment plan, like they're all in. But the live experience, like I know personally as the course creator, like the full program's experience is what I think students should buy, because they're going to need at some point, they're going to have a question and answer, you know, and so that's why we sell that version and we point everyone to that during the live launches.
Yes. Okay. I love that you added that component, because I was like, whoa, that is a hop.
Too big.
So, okay. But I also love that you just brought up something else that maybe people aren't familiar with, which is evergreen versus live.
Yes.
So evergreen is where it's available all the time. So we've all gone to something and you can purchase this offer tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. Well, if it's still around. We've also gotten all the emails that are like, doors are closing, 24 hours left. That's a live launch. So live launches typically last about 2 weeks. And it can be, sometimes they're really short. Sometimes they're 24 hours, 48 hours.
Yeah.
But I would say they typically go about 10 days to 14 days. So usually about 2 weeks. So as a business owner, you're all in for that 2 weeks, but really, let's be honest, it's for the like weeks leading up that you're all in.
Like the whole month. I mean, we're planning one right now for Invite and Delight in April, and yeah, the content calendar is booked for all of March. Like, it's all retreats all the time.
Yes, I mean, here's what I would say are some of the benefits. It makes your content creation really clear. All you're going to be talking about is this thing that's coming up, so that's fun, right? You don't have to think, what am I going to say today? It's obvious.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. Like it's you and I, something that's fun is like you and I have both done tons of retreats. We've both done live launches. We've both done evergreen. We've done small courses, giant courses. You know, we each have done every price point from, under $10 or $10 up to 5,000 and plus. And so we've experienced it all and tried it all. And you know, the evergreen is great because it's like you set it up once, you set up the funnels, and then it's just always available. It's always there. But
it's fun when you get notifications on your phone where like,
isn't it?
My team member Lauren she'll be like, oh, someone bought Invite and Delight Basic last night. Like, so fun, you know, or I wonder where they came from. And we go into our software and we're like, okay, what thing did they download? Where did they come from? Like, we like to know all that, you know. You were about to say, and I know this is what your intention wasn't this, where it's like set it and forget it, because it's definitely not that at all. And in fact, you're always going in there tweaking and checking things out, because you want to know like what's working and what's not working.
Yeah. What's amazing about evergreen is that you can work to create consistent income, but it can have lulls, right? Because the power of a live launch is that there is a component of scarcity. You're going to come in, it's available, but it's going to be going away. And so you have to make a decision. Evergreen, the negative is you can continue to think about it because it's not going anywhere. But for that person who is eager and ready in the moment, they don't have to wait for your live launch to come back and they're in a join the wait list. They get to say yes right this moment. So I think they each have a really powerful place. And I love that you have your lower ticket as the evergreen option and then your higher ticket as the live launch option. So I really love that because there really is a place for each of them.
No, it's been good. It's been good. And it's interesting, like right now, as we were making decisions for the upcoming live launch, we were actually just discussing as a team, okay, when do we turn off the evergreen and start moving people to a wait list? Because a couple weeks ahead of time of launch, I don't want people to be buying the basic version. I know, like I said, in my heart of hearts, the full version is what people need. Like that's how they're going to have the best outcome and achieve the results they want. And so it's this weird tension of like, but were there people that were going to buy? Like, I hate like making them go to this wait list, you know? Yes. And it's like trying to have peace. Like, no, the people who will come will buy it when they need it. And, you know, they'll be patient and it's okay. We can turn it off about a month out and make like switch all our links and things like that.
I love that you said that because that's real, true entrepreneurship. Like we all struggle with trying to make those decisions, you know, trying to decide what the right price point is. Oh, but if I made it lower, would it bring more people in? But then does that actually make people think it's not as valuable now? And, you know, when do I turn off this and turn this on? And how long should I be promoting? And what's the right amount to have the launch open? Like there are so many decisions that yeah, you kind of have to follow your heart and your gut. And just, I think one of the most powerful things is turn yourself as if you were the customer. What do you like? Sometimes we get so stuck in what would work for us as entrepreneurs. And we really need to be thinking as the customer. When I'm trying to make these decisions, what do I appreciate? What has helped me say yes? And that can be so powerful.
Yeah. Okay. I would say too, as a student, I love buying things when they're in live launch mode because there's always extra bonuses. There's usually extra energy and momentum among the other students. So I know like as a shopper and when I buy things from other courses and other educators online, like I'm buying it. I do want it during the live one because I know there's usually extra incentives for doing so.
Yes. Oh, it's so true. It's so true. There's extra, I love what you said. There's extra energy. There's like an energy. There's probably going to be more community involvement, right? It's not going to be DIY. I'm all alone trying to figure this out. There's going to be this community involvement, which is going to help me actually finish it and do the thing versus, you know, have it sit, I was going to say on the shelf, but like on the digital desktop.
Shelf. It's there.
It's the digital shelf, right? Yes. Okay. I want to take a minute and go back to, we talked about how, you know, these funnels typically start with a freebie, right? With something that is valuable that can help them solve a problem. And then that's going to start them in the process. So I want to ask you two questions. One that I know you've gotten before because I've gotten it so many times, which is how do I make sure I'm not giving away too much? And then two is how, and this will shift because this will be a bigger conversation, but how do we get people to see our free thing that we have so that we can build our list?
Yeah. Well, I think for your first question, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur now, I think for almost 15 years, which is crazy. Now I feel like I've been around the block, especially in the online world.
I know. I think we started, when did you start?
What is now you're gonna make me do math.
Did you start in 2007?
Yeah, 2006, 7, and I was even that was like when I actually filed for the license. I was like operating, on a whim for years prior to that, taking money,
I started in 2008 but filed in 2009. So that was my
same thing.
It's been a while. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so I would say it took me that many years to like learn to have a core value of generosity in my business. And that took a long time. It took a lot of maturity, I think, before it finally came to a place, like probably in the last 5 years, where I realized like I don't have to hold on to things so tight, my knowledge, my skills, and how I can be of service to others. And that is like the most attractive feature for a potential customer or client, like to have as much like to be poured into them of what they need. That's how they become customers for life. And so I think just flipping that whole script and be like, how much can I tell them? And I know there's a lot of marketers that are online that are like, oh, well, you don't want to satisfy them too much because then they're not going to buy anything, right? And I think it's just learning. It's a experimentation, right? Yes, of how much should you give versus how much should you not. But if it feels good and juicy and valuable to you and helps them maybe with the first piece, I think that's what's different is sometimes people will go out to create a freebie and they've actually have solved the problem all, like whatever the problem was, they've given it all to them on a platter.
Yeah. That is going to be not good.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, you gave them, there's no reason they're going to give you money now for it. But I think when you're like, if you can at least the first problem that they have and maybe help them find a solution for the first one, but knowing that there's going to be something after, like that's not going to help. Like my retreat planning roadmap does not, there's no possible way for me to go and put that all into a PDF guide, like how to actually execute, or like in the course itself, I give everything. I give templates and swipe files and spreadsheets. Like all of that can't be in a freebie because then that would be everything. But I can at least get them started on that. Like, here's what you should know. Like, here's all the different retreat types that are out there. Like, you didn't know that this was for you because you had one idea of what a retreat looked like, but here's actually like all the different retreats that could exist for you. And anyway, so it's like learning to just pour into people and actually give more than you think you can, and not also give them the full solution.
Yes, I really love that. And I do think that that key is you're answering one part, not the whole thing, but you're answering one part. I've always believed and loved the idea of creating things where they say, wow, if they give that much value when it's free, I can't even imagine how much they give in paid. But I love how you added that little, maybe caveat of like, but we can't give them everything to where like the entire system to where they would say, well, what else do I need? I think you solved the problem.
Right.
What we really want to do is we want to take whatever that problem is and create the solution in the format of a system, and then say, okay, well then, there's 5 steps in the system. I'm going to teach them how to do the first step, or whatever that might look like. So I like that way of thinking about it. I think that's really powerful. Okay,
and
so no, go ahead.
I was going to say you're probably going to get some naysayers out there too, who will give you feedback, unsolicited feedback. Okay, so once you put your freebie out there in the world, right, and especially if you start to run paid traffic ads to it, like we do. You'll get commenters every now and again who don't think you're giving enough. Okay. So you will get ones, oh, I thought I was going to get X, Y, and Z. Like basically the course is what they're already, they have very high expectations. And so, if I was a newer business owner and that happened, I would immediately like imposter syndrome, like, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm doing this all wrong. Like, let me give it to them. But I honestly like then put on my marketing and sales hat, and I'm like, I'm so glad you want that. Like, I actually have that for you. It's over here, And so just reminding yourself that one naysayer or, whatever feedback you got that was expecting so much more is actually just a marketing opportunity for you to just give them more information. Like, here's actually the path you can take. You don't have to retool your entire PDF now.
I love that so much. Yes. Okay. So they've created their opt-in, their freebie, this PDF or masterclass or workbook, whatever it is. They've created it. Now they need the world to know it's here. And so they've started by posting it on their social channels and sending it out to the email list that they have. Yeah. What do they do after that?
Right. So the biggest thing that I would say, and this is what gets overlooked, I think a lot of students and clients I've worked with over the years, is they get stuck in creation mode. And like, I'll meet with some clients like in my mastermind, and I'll say, okay, like, let me see your freebies and your opt-ins. And they have 20. And I'm like, oh, wow, 20. I was like, are you really measuring like how each of these are working and whatnot? And so they're like, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are like that. They're like, they always just want to create more of those when really they need to be creating the content that supports one of them. And so the content, like the number one place that you should put it, even after being an online business owner for 15 plus years, your blog, your website is honestly the best place for it. And creating helpful content that actually teaches, where at the end of it is the call to action to go and download the roadmap, the guide, the freebie, and really be thinking of that in your marketing plan. Like if you can go and do like 2 high quality pieces of content a month, like on your blog, on your website, then you can go amplify out and send to your email newsletter and send to your, on your socials or Pinterest, all those places. But really having that on your website so it's discoverable, like via search engines and Google and places like that, that's how you're going to start getting traffic that can go to it steadily. But not like nobody wants to just instantly give their email address or, like download the freebie. They want to be nurtured. They want to read a story. They want to hear, learn some other tips before that they're like kind of asked out now to go and give the email. It's like that whole first date thing. Right? You don't want to like give everything on the first date. You want to go and like actually talk and have a good dinner and things before you go in for the first kiss.
I agree. I really love that. I think so. To take that, looking at, there's a lot of different ways we can build the freebie page or the opt-in page. Yeah. It can be very, very simple, which is there's a title, a picture, and a place to drop in your name and email address or just the email address and then click download. But I really think, especially if you have people cold landing on an opt-in, maybe it's, coming from a Google search or Pinterest, or even you did a podcast interview and you talked about this. So now they're going to come land on that freebie and they have gotten to know you. Like you've gotten to create some great connection if it was a podcast interview, for example. But I think that the idea of building more of a mini sales page for your freebie is really, really powerful. We, years ago, switched all of ours over to, instead of it being a very basic, they're each their own sales page where it's reselling them on a free thing, but it's reconfirming for them why they should give us their email address, like why it's going to be worth it, what they're going to get, that we understand the problem that they're experiencing, and just helping them feel safe to give me their email address so that I can, create this relationship with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the roadmap I'm talking in particular, if you go to amberhousley.com/roadmap, you can see the landing page to see like the layout of the elements. But I think having like a little bio on there that has kind of your credibility, who you are, how you serve. If you have any logos, like from maybe podcast interviews you've been on or places you've been featured, like have those on there. Have a testimonial or like a little social user-generated content, like screenshot of something that maybe like someone said that was positive about the guide. But just like you said, making it a mini sales page can be really powerful.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. Okay, so you're suggesting that they start with blog content. Like they are actually, they've got this freebie, they create blog posts, and and clearly, I'm just going to say this for anyone who doesn't know, but you're saying, and it needs to be optimized. Like you need to have your SEO settings set up for this so that it could be searched for. So those are going to be things like your title, and then making sure that that title is actually written throughout in the copy. Even making sure the images are keyword rich with the title and the right words that you're trying to go for and whatnot. So they've set it up. And hopefully some traffic is going to get there. But what are additional ways that they can work to push out that content?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say is like one thing as you started to talk about like SEO optimizing blog posts, I bet you some of the listeners are like, oh no, how do I do that? Like, where do I even start? Or like, how do I even write the blog content right now? Like, what am I going to do? I will tell you, I don't know how familiar your audience has been using tools like ChatGPT lately, like it using
They should
AI.
be, because I have a whole course on it. So
okay, so you guys need to go check out Leah's course because it has everything in it. But you can use it to go and help brainstorm your blog content titles, like by saying, here is my audience, here's who I'm, like, these are the problems they have, this is the solution I offer, here is my freebie, here's what my freebie's about, right? Like, this is my download. Give me 10 ideas for some blog posts that I can write that solve this, where the next step is they want to go download my download. Like, that could be exactly the prompt. Yeah. And so suddenly you have like a whole list of ideas that you could work with. So there's a little hot tip.
And I love taking that even further. So like when we have the blog post and it's done, I then take that blog post and I'm like, okay, ChatGPT, how should I optimize this better for SEO? What's my meta description? What are my tags I should be using? What are my, and it'll generate all that. So I don't even have to try to think through and figure out for myself what those should be. So yes, I'm so with you on that. And then looking to push that content once you've built it. You know, the obvious are going to be you push it like to your email list, right? It's a newsletter and you're like, hey, we've got this amazing resource for you. And you're doing the same thing on your social channels. So Facebook, Instagram, also turning it into an article potentially. Now, this is all going to depend on where your audience is, right? Like each person, each business owner needs to really think, where does my audience hang out? If I really believe my audience is never on Instagram, then I probably don't need to worry too much about Instagram. If I'm like, I know my audience is, let's use an example of like very professional. Well, then there's a good chance they're on LinkedIn. And so you probably want to generate that content and then push it out on LinkedIn as another opportunity. Or maybe you know that your ideal audience is on Pinterest and loves Pinterest. That is our number one traffic generator, hands down, like by leaps and bounds. Is we're creating the blog content, we're pushing it out to Pinterest, and then Pinterest is bringing the people back. And so, looking and thinking about where are my people, and then how do I go out and reach them there?
Yeah, and I think like to circle back to what your question was too, because you basically
what was my question?
You basically answered it for me. Thank you. But like another term that people have, like another vocabulary word in the marketing world is content upgrade. And so that's basically what we're doing is like, rather than the idea of like, you have to push out this freebie and put it everywhere. No, it's pushing out the content where at the end of it, you're upgrading it by having people in the call to action as their next step is to download the freebie. So really you're just going out there and pushing out content that's very helpful and related to it. So then they go and download the resource.
So good. And what I love about that is I think people get really nervous about, so I'm going to be talking about this free thing always, like I'm just going to be this broken record, and you don't have to be, because then it's like, and again, feed this into ChatGPT. Here is my freebie. What are 25 things that I could talk about around it, right? And so now, let's say the freebie is, we'll use you as an example, is, around this guide for hosting a retreat. Well, now you can create all these subcategories of like how you do the gifts for a retreat, how you do the styling for a retreat, how you choose speakers for a retreat, how you do a retreat without speakers, how you do a 1-day retreat versus a 3-day retreat, how you do a destination retreat, how you do a virtual retreat, right? Like all of these different components. Now you've got so much different value to add, and they all can push back to that upgrade, which is the freebie, which is so amazing.
It's like, then you have like, you basically have not run out of any ideas. Like you have a constant, place that you can go and pull from.
Yes. And when you get done with all of them, just start over, right? Like that's something I think
recycle. That 100%.
I think people forget about that all the time. Like if we're talking about a way to simplify, go back and see, if you've been doing this for a while, go back and see what you talked about a couple years ago and recycle that. Like if I came up with 25 different things around hosting a retreat, I could go, okay, the next 25 weeks. And when I get to week 26, I start at one again, because you have new audience, you have a new fresh perspective, you have a different way to kind of do it. And you can just do that again instead of sitting down and going, oh shoot, I have to figure this all out all over again. What are my next things?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, you're making my launch so easy. You're giving me all kinds of ideas.
That's awesome. I hope so. That's amazing. Oh man. Okay.
For new ones, I was like, oh yeah, I could talk on that.
Yay. Good. Woohoo. I'm so glad. Okay. Amber, where can they find you? Obviously, there's a launch coming up. So anybody who has been thinking about retreats, like, where to go for sure. But
Absolutely.
Where can everyone find you?
That was just like fun that happened to be the example. I was like, well, let's talk about that funnel. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Fresh in my mind. So you can find me on all the social channels as Amber Housley everywhere. So if there's a channel for it, I'm on there. And then amberhousley.com/roadmap, you can actually download the retreat planning roadmap that we've talked about extensively. You can just see it. Even if you don't want to do retreats, it can help you see how a completed funnel looks like. You can see the nurture email sequence that happens, and actually gets you on a newsletter for retreat tips every month. That's one of our nurture sequences. So that's super fun. And amberhousley.com is the main website. And then I have a podcast as well, and I'm going to have you on it. So that's going to be super fun. The Bloom and Grow Show is the name of my podcast. You can check that out.
Yes. And I mean, we already know you like podcasts, so go run and check that out. And I will say, like, even if you have no interest in retreats, it is really powerful to just see how these different funnels work. I have no doubt that Amber is just like me. Like when you're a marketing junkie, you love seeing how people are doing things. So I go through so many funnels just because I want to watch and see how they do it. And you pick up something. You pick up a little nuance where you're like, oh, that was good. Okay, I could like find my way to incorporate that. So that's always really, really fun. A great way to hack these things that feel really hard. Like go back and look at how a few people that you really admire, look at how they're doing it, and then use that as your framework for creating your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This has been so much fun. I feel like we could have gone on for hours. So thank you for your time. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you pulled just a couple gems. If in any way you are feeling overwhelmed, just start with one thing. One single thing. And then you know what? You can come back to this episode and you can listen again and you'll be ready for the next thing. And things are going to make more sense. It's going to sink in more and you're going to be like, oh, I'm ready. But just start with one single action and go from there. And that's how we really see the progress without the burnout. So thank you, Amber. Thank you to everybody for listening, and I'll see you next week.